We're on 3934. Okay, I'm at 43. Yeah, that's what I remember. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janabalabha Giribardari Yasoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Manachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paravajakacharya Tara Sata Shri Shri Mad Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Granthred Srimad Bhagavatam Ki. Wow, huge garland. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki. Oh. Now I'm embarrassed. I won't live up to the respect of this garland, you know. I'll have to edit it out of my video. Right, right. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhunam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavan Eshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so we're in Canto 3, Chapter 9, Text 34, where Krishna is responding to Brahma. Nana karma vitanena Nana karma vitanena Prajabhavi shishikshataha Prajabhavi shishikshataha Natmat vatsid asmimste Namat vasidatyatmis. Sorry. Natma vasidatyatmin asmimste. Natma vasidatyatmimste. Varishyan madanugraha. Varshiyan madanugraha. Nana karma vitanena Prajabhavi shikshataha Not mavasi datyasminste Varshiyan madanugraha Take it away. Nana karma vitanena prajabhavi shikshataha natmavasi datyasmin ste varshiyan madanugraha. Natmavasi datyasmin ste varshiyan madanugraha. Nana karma vitanena prajabhavi shikshataha natmavasi datyasmin ste varshiyan madanugraha. Ladies, okay. Nana karma, varieties of service. Vitanena, my expansion of. Prajaha, population. Bhavihi, innumerable. Shishikshataha, desiring to increase. Na, never. Atma, self. Avasidati, will be bereaved. Asmin, in the matter. Te, of you. Varshiyan, always increasing. Mat, my. Anugraha, causeless mercy. So the translation reads, since you have desired to increase the population innumerably and expand your varieties of service, you shall never be deprived in this matter, because my causeless mercy upon you will always increase for all time. So responsively, since you have desired to increase the population innumerably and expand your varieties of service, you shall never be deprived in this matter, because my causeless mercy upon you will always increase for all time. Okay, so there's a short purport here. A pure devotee of the Lord, being cognizant of the facts of the particular time, object, and circumstances, always desires to expand the number of devotees of the Lord in various ways. Such expansions of transcendental service may appear to the material to be, may appear to be material to the materialist, but factually, they're expansions of the causeless mercy of the Lord toward the devotee. Plans for such activities may appear to be material activities, but they are different in potency, being engaged in the satisfaction of the transcendental senses of the Supreme. Nana karma vitanena prajabhavi shikshataha natma vasidati asmimste varshiyan madanugraha. Since you've desired to increase the population innumerably and expand your varieties of service, you shall never be deprived in this matter, because my causeless mercy upon you will always increase for all time. So, just as Brahma was praying for Krishna to empower him, give him knowledge so he could create the universe, I'm praying to Krishna also that I may say something that will be memorable, useful, and might stick with you sometime after this class is ended. But right away, I'm thinking that this situation here, which Brahma has found himself in, is very interesting. And of course, he's made nice prayers. And now Krishna's answering, or he's responding. Now, before I really started in the class, I was going to ask our group here for feedback. Does Krishna always respond to our prayers? Or does he sometimes not respond? If so, why? If so, why not? Any takers? Oh yeah, we don't have the mic set up yet. Official mic. I'll use this as another opportunity to drink some more water. My voice is doing something weird this morning. I'm surprised I made it through Mongol Artik. I really didn't think I was going to be able to sing it through, but somehow Krishna made it happen.
Yeah, as he wants, or depends on the prayers. Some of these prayers are more valuable and
more what?
Valuable, or
valuable.
Yeah, or more important. For the spiritual matter, or for advancement, or purification, or some realizations, of course. But yeah, some like nonsense things, it's like not important. He doesn't want to like too much.
Others have anything to add?
I was thinking that it relies a lot upon the intention, right? Like the mood of the prayer. It's like, oh, give me this. You're my metaphysical Amazon Prime, my order supplier. Give me this, give me this, give me this. But then we're just saying, oh, like, please give me this. I really want this. I think it'll help me out. Please, you are Supreme Lord, and please fulfill these desires. I think that it depends a lot on the mood. I think sometimes I'll get in the mood of, oh my God, Krishna, please just give me this thing. Just like trying to like order, like being in a mood of like ordering God. I think that he doesn't respond. He doesn't respond, reciprocate to that. But if we're in the mood of the servant, like, please, I really need this for service. Please let me have this. And I think that I really feel some reciprocation with that mood.
Yeah, okay. Arjuna's going to say something here.
In my opinion, I think Krishna answers our prayers always, but the question is of when he answers, because for Dhruva, he answered the question, but after purifying his heart. After purifying Dhruva's heart, that time later he gave the kingdom. So he's not like demigods where you cannot oblige Krishna to answer the prayers right now, but it is up to his free will. But he does answer because we are praying to him. So the question becomes of when he chooses to answer the prayers.
Well, I think it's an interesting subject. You know, we could say that even when he doesn't answer, that's a kind of response. You know, we could say, I want to become a pure devotee. I'm praying to Krishna to become a pure devotee. But why doesn't it happen like right away? Obviously, something else is required. And we will eventually become pure devotees if we keep making that prayer. Of course, if we pray for something more on the material level, then Krishna may respond. And then again, he may not respond, knowing that the thing we're asking for is not going to help us in devotional service. It may impede us. But of course, if we continue to ask for something material, then he may, you know, allow us to have it with whatever repercussions come with it as well, you know, so that may occur. But what's interesting is sometimes you're praying to Krishna to know what the reality of something is, or what you should do, or what's the truth in a particular situation. And no answer appears to arrive, you know. Well, you know, I have my theory about that. I don't know if there's a cut and dried, answer for that situation. But sometimes you might not be ready for the answer, or the answer is so obvious, but you're just in denial and you can't see it. And that's, I think that may happen on occasions, that the answer is obvious, but because of your own attitude, you can't see the answer. And in some cases, I think that the attitude the answer requires you to change your consciousness substantially. And as your consciousness changes, you begin to understand what the answer was. I think that, you know, many times I've had big questions, and, you know, at some point they were answered, you know, even if it was after the fact, after I'd made the wrong decision, you know, way down the road years later, you know, so that sometimes happens. But eventually I figured out what the answer should have been or was. So this is an interesting situation. You have Brahma making prayers, and now Krishna is answering. But what really struck me, I liked the class that our Raj Mohan gave yesterday. I was up in Ravel land up there in upstate, you know, at Newburgh. And I was doing their Bhagavatam class, which happens exactly at the same time this one does. And they were they were in the 12th canto, talking about the age of Kali Yuga and all the horrible things. It was kind of a whisker singeing sort of section in the Srimad Bhagavatam. But you know, I watched on YouTube the Vraja Mohan and his discussion yesterday about the verse purport. But there was one aspect of it that was really interesting that I've thought about many times, but I'd never really, been able to put it into words. And that purport from yesterday was very kind of to the point about it. And what the purport talked about is the idea of service in love. I think one time long ago, I saw some movie or something like that where, you know, somebody was, trying to become closer to the Supreme Lord in some kind of way, and the devil was, trying to tempt him away from it, and saying, "Are you sure you want to do that?" And he made the devil made this motion like, "Holy, holy, holy." You want to be doing that for the rest of eternity. And it struck me that I think a lot of people have that concept that to serve God, you're kind of like, maybe a table, or a dumbwaiter, or a fixture of some kind. You're doing some repetitious, not very intellectually useful thing. And you do it every day over and over again at the same time, in kind of endless monotony of some kind or another. I think that a lot of people subconsciously, I know I do, I can speak for myself, have this kind of root fear that service means we will be like some kind of fixture, some kind of purpose that will be, very sort of not very expanded, and mostly will just be looking or standing at attention, like, military troops in review or something like that. And this certainly doesn't inspire anyone towards service, but it just shows how far we are from who we are, that our concept of the Supreme is so impoverished, and our real sense of what it means to do service is so sort of menial and so undeveloped that we're scared away by this sort of false conception of it. But the way Prabhupada explained it in yesterday's purport, I thought really needed to be highlighted, at least it stuck out to me. And it was something I've thought about for a long time. And here it was, the verse that finally kind of pulled it out and said it in a very clear way. Prabhupada said, imagine working or working with or serving somebody that you really respect. Someone who you really admire in a very basic way. If they ask you to do something, you don't feel put upon. And it's the bare reality that at least, many times we just don't have that relationship with Krishna yet. He is that person that is in a very deep, if we really understood how he does things, his love for us, his fact that he's funny, the fact that he does things unexpectedly, the fact that he has these pastimes, which means you never know what you're going to be up to, even we see it as devotees, you join a temple somewhere in Cucamonga, the next thing you're in South Africa or in New York City, or you're in, some other place in Europe or something like that. There used to be a thing, join the Navy and see the world. Join the Hare Krishnas, you'll see the world and you won't have to kill anybody. It's, you really do get dragged over practically every part of this whole planet, if you become a Hare Krishna devotee, it's really amazing the way that works. But, Krishna does these things. He's interesting, he's unpredictable, he's funny, he's someone who really does have our interests at heart, even when we don't. He has our interest at heart. And he really does know how to do everything. And he really can't do everything. And he does things in a way that everybody comes out ahead, like no human being could ever do. So in other words, he's the best possible boss you could ever have, And what's interesting is that if you're called into a more intimate relationship with him, he's not even your boss anymore. He's just one of the guys, he's just one of the people in the situation. And if we really could understand deeply who Krishna is, we would feel a spontaneous sense of wanting to, whatever he wanted, we would try to do it without feeling at all put upon to do that. Of course, it's interesting that devotees do have dialogues with the Supreme. I was just watching this video that I I recorded about 4 years ago in Mayapur of Bhakti Marg Swami did a drama called Mr. Puri. And it was about Madhavendra Puri. The drama was about Madhavendra Puri. And, you know, he just commandeered devotees from that were into acting, you know, from basically all over the world. There were devotees there. And so he made this drama troupe. It was a musical, so they're dancing and singing and all this kind of stuff. And Madhavendra Puri is... you know, erecting a temple for Gopal, who's been buried under the earth. And then the deity comes to him and says, my dear Madhavendra Puri, I very much appreciate your service for me. And in the drama, you know, the devotee playing Madhavendra Puri says, yes, you should. And he says, but Madhavendra Puri, I'm hot. I need some sandalwood. And Madhavendra Puri said, you are high maintenance. And, you know, it has a humorous effect, you know, it's the way that he wrote the drama. But, you know, actually sometimes devotees do relate to the Supreme Lord in ways like that, you know. There's this episode where, you know, it's quite famous, where Teresa, of Saint Teresa, I think, Lisieux, is riding in an ox cart, and it's a rainy, horrible day. And, you know, it's a bumpy road somewhere in Europe, you know, in France or wherever it was that she was. And the ox cart hits a bump, and she gets knocked off the ox cart, and she falls in a big mud puddle. And so she's, you know, not only is it a dreary, horrible day, but now she's muddy and wet. And she looks up and she sees Jesus. And Jesus says, my dear Teresa, this is how I treat my friends. And she replies to Jesus, is it any wonder you have so few? And, you know, so sometimes devotees do kind of reply to the Supreme in some sort of sharp ways. But of course, there's a deeper love there that's quite abiding. So although it might seem, you know, kind of curt on the surface, there is a real reality there. There is a real reality there. And so service, when it's done like as Prabhupada used the example yesterday, like a wife does for a husband or a husband does for a wife, it's not done kind of out of force or obligation. We always are aware of things we have to do because we're obliged to, things we have to do because we're afraid not to do them. Those things we do, but there's no love there. I mean, it's not really love. And in devotional service, we may be doing a lot of things, and probably are, where we do them because we know we should. We know we should, but we haven't developed a sense of love yet. But as we grow into it, we will discover that we are not wooden mannequins or some kind of low-class robot, like you know, like this IoT, Internet of Things, where we're a refrigerator that can remember your menu list, or we're a coffee maker that knows what time to turn on in the morning so the coffee's ready before we have to catch the bus. You know, we are actually involved in a relationship, and we are each individual. Not every gopi sings, not every devotee in the spiritual world arranges flowers. You know, we have differences, and I think that that's something that we should always keep in mind, and that also the management needs to also think about that. people are individuals now, and eventually in the spiritual world as well. It's not like one size fits all and we all become like some kind of carbon copy clones of each other doing exactly the same thing in exactly the same way, all in lockstep or something like that. But it's part of a circle of relationships. And I just found that that whole little segment where Prabhupada used that example of when you do something out of love, it has a different effect than when you do it, because you either have to or you're afraid not to. We do a lot of things because we have to or we're afraid not to. And, it's not that we should stop doing things because we're afraid to or we have to. But eventually, devotional service becomes absorbed into love, and we do things because we want to. We have a deep affection for the Supreme. So I wanted to bring that out. And so on that note, I thought that I would just kind of wrap up before we ask some questions at the end for feedback, that we can, Krishna always leaves the door open. We can gradually learn how to develop a relationship with him, and we will make mistakes along the way. I certainly made mistakes. There's no, if you discover you've made a mistake, you're on the wrong side of an issue, you did the wrong thing, you followed the wrong person, you were mistaken about a point in the philosophy or whatever. The only thing to do is to just continue on. Understand what your mistake was, ask for forgiveness if it's an offensive behavior, and move on, because likely you will make mistakes. The only way to be sure that you're not going to make serious mistakes is to take Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra really seriously. If you're really studying what the Shastra says, you're really studying what the Acharyas say, and you're also studying what the advanced devotees say, likely you'll come out all right in most situations. I can certainly say in my own case that where I hadn't come out all right, then it was because I didn't take myself to task to really understand the philosophy in a deep level. So we can do that, or we can stay in the material world and chase after the big rock candy mountain. So there was when I was a kid, there was a show for kids on television called Captain Kangaroo. So most of you probably never heard of it or never will hear of it. Maybe Kavi Chandra has heard of Captain Kangaroo. He was on TV for kids. He had big pockets. That's why he was called Captain Kangaroo. And there was this song that used to come on about the big rock candy mountain. And I just, Googled it up, and I got the adult version of it. Evidently, they had a kid version of it too. But it's a song about kind of the wish of the hobo. At one time in America, there was a whole class of people who traveled the trains, not the passenger trains, but freight trains. And they would just live with no money or anything. They would get on a train, and when it was cold, they would go south on the trains, and then they would live in areas where there were trees or something like that, hobo villages they were. And so they had no money. And, they would have these encampments, and this was a whole kind of thing. And so in America, there's this kind of ethos of the hobo and a person riding a train. So this is what that song was. And we can see what the materialistic dream actually looks like. This is the materialistic version of Goloka Vrindavan. So one evening as the sun went down and jungle fire was burning, down the tracks a hobo hiking, he said, boys, I'm not turning. I'm headed for a land that's far away beside the crystal fountains. So come with me, we'll go and see the Big Rock Candy Mountain. In the Big Rock Candy Mountains, there's a land that's fair and bright, where the handouts grow on every bush and you sleep out every night, where the boxcars all are empty and the sun shines every day on the birds and the bees and the cigarette trees, the lemon springs and the bluebird sings in the Big Rock Candy Mountain. In the Big Rock Candy Mountain, the cops have wooden legs and all the bulldogs have rubber teeth and the hens lay soft-boiled eggs. The farmers' trees are full of fruit and the barns are full of hay. Oh, I'm bound to go where there ain't no snow and the rain don't fall and the wind don't blow. In the Big Rock Candy Mountains. In the Big Rock Candy Mountains, you never change your socks. And little streams of alcohol come trickling down the rocks. The brakemen have to tip their hats and the railroad bulls are blind. There's a lake of stew and of whiskey too, and you can paddle around them in a big canoe. In the Big Rock Candy Mountain. In the Big Rock Candy Mountains, the jails are made of tin, and you can walk right out again as soon as you are in. There ain't no short-handled shovels, no axes, saws, or picks. I'm gonna stay where you sleep all day, where they hung the jerk that invented work in the Big Rock Candy Mountains. So, of course, when it's presented this way, you really see how laughable the whole material concept is. But this is actually what a lot of people would think is a kind of a heaven world, you know. We can actually see people who would think of like that, you know, that you got cigarette trees and there's a lake full of whiskey and stew and, you know, the alcohol comes out of the rocks and there's no wind that blows and, you know, the policemen can't chase you because they have legs of wood and the whole thing. So it's our choice. You know, we can try to develop our relationship with Krishna, or we can try to continue with the chasing after the Big Rock Candy Mountain here, which is kind of what material life is, this sort of dreamy, non-real thing. All right, so I want to leave some time for questions and feedback. Anybody have any questions or feedback?
You mentioned that we're all individuals, that's important for us to keep in mind as management.
Please speak slowly because I'm getting an echo here and my hearing isn't good. It kind of makes it unintelligible for me, I'm afraid.
You mentioned that people are individuals, that devotees will have different activities in the spiritual world and here in the material world, well, on this earth. And we have to keep that in mind as management. But we're also encouraged to be regulated. And if we do different programs, sometimes it may disturb minds. And we don't know how to prioritize.
Right, right.
So how do we manage that in association?
Well, to some extent, yes. Our lives are kind of, you know, regulated, and we are kind of just trying to do more or less the same thing. So in the beginning, that will be quite a strong component in our Krishna consciousness. But as time goes forward in devotional service, as years cross on, excuse me, the individual nature of who we are will start to become more apparent. Some devotees wind up going into administration, some wind up going into doing some kind of organization, some go into doing some kind of fundraising or communication or other things. So in the beginning, we are accepting a lot of kind of regimentation, which makes us similar, same, repetitive, etc. But that's not really the goal in the long run. That as time flows on, the individual nature of who we are will start to surface. And is that your question? Did I get the drift of what you were saying? Yeah. Okay. Kavichandra, you were going to say something.
In the beginning, you were asking about, does Krishna answer prayers? He answers, but not what you asked for exactly.
Right.
He has his way of
right.
giving you what you need. We don't know, but something we might realize later. We should be careful. If we pray like Queen Kunti, we might get in trouble.
Well, we should always pray.
Trouble.
Go ahead.
She said, "Give me more trouble."
Right.
And he will. And
he will. Right. Well, the idea, of course, is that whatever we pray for, we should always put, if you also think it's a good idea, my dear Lord, that's a kind of good sort of disclaimer to add at the bottom of any prayer, that if you think this is good, then X, Y, Z, whatever it is I'm praying for. In general, though, if we're praying to remove our material desires, we're praying to increase our devotional service, we're praying for the benefit of other people, then we don't, that kind of prayer we don't have to worry about much. Krishna will do whatever they can, whatever he knows best in the situation, because always he knows best. Oftentimes, people will give the charge that the Supreme Lord doesn't hear prayers because, they had some material desire, and that material desire didn't get satisfied. Prabhupada used the example that, in the Second World War, the wives in the United States were praying, please let my, husband come home from the war. And in Germany, the wives were praying, please let my husband come home from the war. But obviously not every husband came back from the war. So some became atheists as a result of that, because there's a humorous thing in the Mahabharata too, where the householder is praying, my dear Krishna, please protect my house from thieves and dacoits, and the dacoit is praying, my dear Lord, please let me steal and not get caught this time. So what is the Supreme Lord supposed to do? He's getting opposite messages from two different people. He can't supply both. He has to do one or the other. So, of course, the idea is that Krishna knows how best to do everything. So, prayers are not always, we're asking for something, but if we are asking for something, then we should try to see that thing we're asking for is spiritual. And not simply a material thing. And even if we're asking for something that we know we want and Krishna knows we want, it still might not happen because Krishna is watching, waiting for our desire to grow so that we raise the effort and the focus on it to a higher level. And then he may reciprocate. Eventually, if anything we desire long enough, hard enough, will come to pass. So if we desire Krishna consciousness in a full-on way, then naturally it will come to pass. Any other questions or comments? Yeah.
Sometimes I have some desire to perform a particular type of service in a particular way, but I think it's service at least. Is it better just to kind of ignore these pulls and just go for the big prayers of pure devotion?
I would answer that with the way that I generally think of it, is that if you can more or less cover the services that are asked of you and do something that's a little, extra, then that's where you can do something. You can use your individual creativity for Krishna, because somewhere along the line, our individual creativity has to also be used in Krishna's service. And if you are covering the bases that are expected of you, and you still have some latitude to do something that's your own special gift, then that shows that you are really utilizing your full human dimension for Krishna. But it may be difficult, and you may find that you're covering your bases, but you're not really making much progress in that thing that you were hoping to do for Krishna as a creative project or whatever it is. That's the way I find myself most of the time. Yeah. Yeah, you can speak. Everybody else is either gone to sleep or is hasn't figured it, hasn't connected it with anything, whatever. Sometimes that's what happens to me too in a class. I just I can't think of anything to say. But,
You mentioned the attitude, and maybe you thought that maybe Krishna, or we don't have the proper attitude to perceive the answer.
mhm.
So this attitude, there's this famous part Prabhupada wrote in the preface to the Nectar of Instruction. I don't know if I'll quote it properly, but the attitude advancement in Krishna consciousness depends on the attitude of the follower.
Mhm.
I don't know if that was quite proper.
Well, right. The verse that I wanted to point out today is 4:11. Yeya tama prapajante tam satai vibhajamyaham mama bharmanu bhartante manusya partha sarvasha. As they surrender to me, I reward them accordingly. So Krishna is reciprocating with everyone according to both their, intent and also to the degree of their intensity. So there's kind of an intensity and a direction at the same time. So those who are very intense, Krishna reciprocates with much more quickly. And, that's the verse there, that one can easily and quickly get Krishna's mercy if one is very intense about it and one knows what to actually ask for or what to focus on. If we focus on the right things and we focus very intensely, then spiritual life is very quickly achieved. If we're not very intense and we are focusing on a lot of kind of not so important things, then spiritual life kind of tends to drag on. It tends to just be less of a positive goal. And a verse that I always find myself coming back from that I've never heard anybody quote is in the 11th canto, Abir Bhutani Bhutatma Mahabhutar Mahabhujaha Sasarcha Chabajanyadya Swa Matratma Prasidaye. That the Navi Yogendras are speaking to Maharaj Nimi, You know, so Maharaj Nimi had this fire sacrifice, and these 9 naked men appear out of the sky, you know, the Nava Yogendras who travel in the sky, and they are brothers of Bharat Maharaj, you know, the Bharat, who was the son of Rishabdev. So Antariksha says, you know, in the explanation to Maharaj Nimi, that the Supreme Lord created all kinds of species in higher and lower consciousness to facilitate the living entities either matra or their what is the other word? Abir Bhutani Bhuta Mahabhutar Mahabhuja Sasarcha Matra or Atma, that's what it is. So if we want to facilitate our Atma, our spiritual side, the Supreme Lord will do that. If we want to facilitate our Matra, our material side, the Supreme Lord will help us do that. You know, so it's all owing to what we want, you know. So if we focus our consciousness on spiritual goals and spiritual understanding, then the Supreme Lord will eventually help us to achieve that direction. And similarly, if we focus on the other side, on material things, then the Supreme Lord will help us kind of forget about him and become somewhat successful in chasing some material, you know, limited, you know, goals that we say we want, but goals that when we get them really won't satisfy us in a very deep way. All right, so at any rate, thank you all very much for your kind attention, and all glories to Srimad Bhagavatam. All glories to the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. Jai Shri Shri Radha Govinda Dev. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.